Welcome to Muslim Apologetic Australia. In this video, I'm going to discuss a debate I had with an LGBTI homosexual advocate on a post which was posted by BBC News. So it says, rainbow flags were flown at the Euro 2020 football match after UEFA banned the arena from lighting up in the colours due to an anti-gay law passed in Hungary. So Hungary passes an anti-gay law to ban LGBTI or homosexuality activism in preschools. You know, when they have cartoons to support homosexuality, to teach children about homosexuality. Hungary has banned this, so it doesn't indoctrinate these children, so they can grow up and healthfully make their own minds about it, right? So Hungary bans this, and so an LGBTI activist runs on the field of a UEFA soccer game with a flag and tries to disrupt the game in order to display their outrage on the Hungarian government. And so that's basically the context of the debate. And so I posted a response and we will debate this issue. So I posted a response and this pretty much triggered the LGBT activists. And so Lillian writes, we are all human beings and should all be respected and not discriminated against. And I wrote a response saying, I hope they arrest that person and throw them in jail for not respecting the law. Because, I mean, you can't start showing your condemnation and, you know, trying to forcefully change the law just because you disagree with it. So that's where basically the debate took place. And Christina Fitzgerald writes back and says, laws with discrimination shouldn't be laws at all, and I'd happily ignore them. So this is what this activist has said, this homosexual activist. And my response is, well then thank you for supporting Sharia law in the West, because according to your logic, I too should ignore the law in Australia that forbids polygyny. Imagine I said I'd happily ignore them since it's discriminatory. I would be crucified by the West for trying to Islamicize the West. I would be told to leave Australia and find a Muslim country to live in. So I ask, why the inconsistency? Why is there an LGBTIQ permitted to impose their rights, but when Muslims try, they are told to go live somewhere else? I think there needs to be a consistency. We either respect the law or we don't. If that is a law, it ought to be respected. Otherwise, we can all break laws that impinge our rights. What's next? If people wish to practice consensual incest, should we be able to do so even if the law does not permit it? No law can cater for everyone's needs. Every law is subjective, and unless you can hold political power to change the laws, no one has a right to try and force it without political approval. Have a nice day. So basically all I'm saying to these people is, I mean, what gives you the right? What gives you the right to say, I'll happily ignore the law? I mean, even as a Muslim, I could say, okay, fine, I'm happy to ignore the law too. No worries. And I'll follow your method. But are you willing to accept my right as well? If I say, yeah, sure, I'll ignore the law. I won't marry someone at 18. I'll marry someone at 17 or 16 years old. You'll say, hang on a minute, you're breaking Australia's law. How could you do that? Well, I'll just say, well, I don't agree with it. So again, you notice these are the double standards. And see, we would be told to go back to live in the Middle East if we don't agree to it. But the LGTB, it doesn't matter. They're like, we don't care. It's against our human right. We're gonna ignore the law. Stuff the law. So notice the double standards, how the inconsistency changes when it comes to Muslims. Christina Fitzgerald writes back and says, because your rights are supported by fairy tales as well as all religious, whereas LGBTI members simply want the same rights granted to all human beings. Doesn't take a genius to figure that out. Post a rainbow flag. Have a wonderful bigotry-filled day, sir. Gets 21 likes for it. I wrote back, and we'll also respond to Lillian. She says, without protest and without people wanting to be accepted for who and what they believe in, we wouldn't be here today where we are. What's normal anyway? We should be all accepted for our beliefs and religion and live in harmony. It should be simply a choice and we should accept it. Our ancestors fought in harmony. We wouldn't have all the right to vote like we do today. Anyway, okay. So responding to the first comment, saying my rights are supported by fairy tales is not an argument to discriminate. Then according to your logic, let's ban all churches and mosques from legally operating since they're based on fairy tales. So here you are demanding rights for LGBTI as a human right, at the same time demanding religious vilification as legitimacy that impinges upon basic human rights. And you call me a bigot when you are the religious bigots yourself. By the way, incest, brother marrying a sister, or things like zoophilia is not religiously condoned. Despite this, we still have laws to restrict these human interests, even when they're not based on fairy tales. I find it equally hilarious that LGBTI activists wish for the church to accept gay marriages to be blessed by the church father and allow gay marriages to be conducted in churches. Funny that now a fairy tale becomes relevant. By the way, a lot of Western laws are derived from Judeo-Christian laws, but you didn't complain much about the fairy tale there. And this is addressing Lillian's point where she said, we should just accept everyone's choices and blah, blah, blah. I said to her, no system or government in the world would accept everyone's moral desires to be respected and accepted. No religious law, no secular law could ever give this right, because both conservative and secular laws have a clash of moral values. So it's either one or the other. And there is a saying, you can't please everyone. For example, the age of consent in Australia to get married is 18. However, in the UK, it's 16. So those who wish to get married younger need to go live in the UK. Under Australian law, it's unethical and even deemed to be child marriage if you marry under 18. So not only are there clashes of moral values between conservative religion and secular law, there are even clashes between secular law and secular law. No one has the right then to go break the law of another land simply because it impinges on their human right or subjective moral values. We should all love we would all love to live on a planet where every moral value is given the green light, according to your views. But that just doesn't happen. And we need to be honest and accept the reality and stop pretending we can cater for all beliefs and all values. Maybe on another planet like Mars, but certainly not here. Christine writes back and says, following a cult is a choice. Sexuality is not. You seem like you're repressing a lot of anger. She then goes on to say, you seem to be very determined to compare people from LGBTI community to things like zoophilia, which goes to show the level of your maturity. She says, I honestly don't care which of the thousands of deities or religious you want to waste your time on, but faith and law should never ever mingle. She then says, religion is why women have only just found their independence and have been treated like second-class citizens. It's why gay people have been killed throughout history. She then says, I don't even want to get married in a church because I quite frankly don't believe in any of it, and certainly wouldn't want my money going into the multi-billion business that is religion. Okay, so there's a lot to address there, but let's go through it. So her first question was, following a cult is a choice, sexuality is not. You seem like you're repressive, a lot of anger. So my response is, anger? Are you appealing to emotion when confronting a debate? Is that another stereotyping? Oh, look, angry men can't have a rational conversation. That's your way of belittling the other sex? I said, do you mean the cult of LGBTI that tries to indoctrinate about LGBTI to preschool children? And you are misinformed. Sexuality can be considered a choice. There is a case study that shows under extreme therapy, a gay person was transformed into a straight person, as reported by CNN. And again, I'll put a hyperlink below this video and you can see the article yourself. Also, even if being gay is out of your control, doesn't mean you can't practice it behind closed doors. However, asking for it to be accepted as marriage, now that's a choice. Asking it to be accepted and indoctrinated into school kids, that's a choice again. The whole ceremonial thing that you wish to be recognized is a choice in church, for example, or in marriage. I mean, you can still be gay and have a choice not to have it legally binding, can't you? You then wrote, you seem to be very determined to compare people from the LGBTI community to things like zoophilia, which goes to show your level of maturity. My response to that is, I'm not comparing the two. I'm comparing people's wishes and how if we are to be consistent, then under your theory of human rights, then all rights should be given because it's about human rights after all, isn't it? Notice you're backtracking. And then you wrote, I honestly don't care which of the thousands of deities or religions you want to waste your time on, but faith and law should never be mingled. My response is, there are so many different theories on politics, economics, morals, but you seem perfectly content studying them all and choosing the one you think is true. Only when it comes to God, all of a sudden your brain conveniently shuts down. You see, that's a secular liberal dictatorship. Shun religion and make secularism superior over all religion. Imagine we said that about religion. Shun secularism and make religious law dominant over secular law. You would then cry dictatorship and being a cult, wouldn't you? And that's interesting because, I mean, I personally, of course, believe Islam should be dominant over all belief systems. But the hypocrisy is this, folks. One is called a cult and the other one isn't called a cult. So they're trying to impose LGBTI on the rest of us, but apparently that's not a cult. That ideology is not a cult when they're trying to indoctrinate even children into LGBTI, which the Hungarian government rightfully banned. And she says religion is like a cult, says the one ridiculing, oppressing, investing all their time and energy in the effort to indoctrinate the rest of the world to their way of thinking, to get everyone to conform with secularism in the hope of removing any sign of religion from the face of the globe. uh, Then she wrote, religion is why women have only just found their independence and have been treated as second-class citizens. It's why gay people have been killed throughout history. I mean, I find that funny. You talk about women's rights, and despite women in France under secular law being banned from wearing the hijab, which is their choice, and here you want to talk about, second class. It's bizarre you say this when you treat religion, clergymen, and their religious laws as being second-class citizens that should not interfere with modern-day politics. Committing incest and zoophilia also has consequences like going to jail if you break those laws. So punishment is also a tool used by secularists to deter people from what they consider illegal. She then wrote, I don't ever want to get married in a church because I quite frankly don't believe in any of it, and certainly wouldn't want my money going into the multi-billion business that is religion. My response to that was, you may not, but some religious gay people do, you know, want want to get married in church, and they do indeed impose their gay rights to be accepted and recognised at church services. And yes, you're again going off topic with your anti-religion rant. Your atheism is just another form of religion. I heard they now even have their atheist churches. I've heard this before. Atheist religion is just trying to, atheists say religion is just trying to sell you an invisible product. It clashes on fear and emotions. It's all about, scamming people for their money. And yet, I'll put a hyperlink below this video, $500,000 a year, you can be part of the Richard Dawkins Magic of Reality Circle. So if you donate to Richard Dawkins $500,000, you're part of his Magic Circle reality, in which you get to have a meal with him on an annual basis. Yes, that's $500,000 of your dollars cash into your reasonable logic to disprove an invisible product. And you want to talk about religion being a money-making machine. And then Raynan E. Bolise, he actually comes on stage because he sees that Christine has been totally defeated. So he tries to carry on what is left with the debate, and we'll continue. So basically he says the difference is, okay, before we get to him, we'll just get to Christina because she's ending with her closing statement. She says, I'm not reading all that bull. She says, I'm afraid I understand you have a deep-seated hatred for LGBTI community. You are stuck in the Stone Ages. It's okay. I just hope you never pass on your bigoted and horrific views onto children. She says, I will not be saying anymore because you can't argue with the deluded. Notice, run from the debate. Call, ad hominem attacks. So basically I said to Christina, you're not reading? Oh, so you quit debating basically when you got schooled. I'm stuck in the Stone Age? Well, truth doesn't have an expiry date. You can't say anymore because there is nothing much more you can respond to. Instead, use an ad hominem attack, which is quite typical from a militant atheist. She goes, if I pass I hope you never pass your bigoted, horrific views on children. And you'll be passing your horrific views on children about, that anal sex is okay between two men. Yeah, okay. That's not abhorrent. No, of course not. What is horrific is the fact that you people are polluting the minds of so many, and they're going to end up in hellfire for doing so, for practicing this evil practice, That's horrific. That you are no different than a terrorist that's sending these people to hellfire. You are no different from these terrorists. And here you are talking about horrific. Horrific. You are criminals. That's what you people are. Okay, so let's go to Rainan E. Bolesi. He says, the difference is LGBTI people successfully defended their rights through scientific and logical means, while you are still stuck in a fairy tale. Okay, so my response to him is, secular systems don't just accept rights through scientific means or even logical means. This isn't even a criterion. I have no idea what you're talking about. Secular rights do give rights to superstition beliefs, for example. How do you think tarot card readers legally operate? Or, people who read your palms and pretend they know the future and stuff like that. There's no scientific justification. There's no criterion there, but they're legally obligated. They can legally operate under secular institutions. He says, I'm still stuck in a fairy tale. Why atheism can lead to belief in fairies, goblins, and unicorns. An atheist would reply and say, I don't believe in God like I don't believe in fairies, goblins, or unicorns. A theist would say, okay, why do you think the universe is finely tuned for life? An atheist would say, random chance, our universe is just one of many infinite universes and possibilities. A theist then would say, if infinite possibilities, then wouldn't there be somewhere a possible universe where fairies, goblins, or unicorns exist? And an atheist would say, I guess so, yes. And my reply to that is, so to insist on atheism, you do have to believe in fairies, goblins, and unicorns. Right? So, yeah. Okay, so we'll get to the next question. Raynan says, read benevolent neutrality principles of Supreme Court. The state government never questions a morality that accommodates all, yet they scrutinize any moral standards of certain communities that endangered other communities like LGBTI. And then they wrote, tarot cards never discriminate nor oppress as long as such beliefs is not invasive and does not bring imminent danger. It says, law said presumed good and innocent unless proven otherwise. Conservatives fail to prove what dangers LGBTI brings as what they purported, but LGBTI further reaffirms their rights through scientific explanation. Okay. We'll start with the tarot cards point. Tarot cards are legal. That's the point. I showed secular law doesn't just legalize things based on science and rationality, something your friends were trying to dismiss, saying they should, or it's acceptable to dismiss principles based on unscientific grounding. Also, we know that religious beliefs have benefits in society. For example, a study was shown that religious people, unlike non-religious people, are more charitable. Again, I'll put the hyperlink below this video. Therefore, there is scientific backing that religious people can be beneficial towards the poor. Therefore, one can argue religion as a moral value can be beneficial for human race. This dismisses their assertion that religion shouldn't be given a right because it's based on a fairy tale, when the very fairy tale they accuse has beneficial elements to society, scientifically attested by verification, such as religious people being more charitable towards those who are non-religious. And then the questioner asks, what is wrong with being gay? And so there are many factors wrong with being gay, but there are three main factors that stick out for me. Firstly, God has designed humankind, male and female, to procreate and have offspring. However, the gay lifestyle obstructs procreation and damages the fabric of society when it comes to procreation. Secondly, every child has a right to have parents of the opposite sex. One may ask, well, what about children who are born to one parent while the other parent dies? Well, my response is that's something unavoidable. But you cannot compare that to same-sex marriages that are designed to have parents of the same sex. This is all designed and determined beforehand and not based on a tragic circumstance. Thirdly, every child deserves the right to be biologically connected to both parents. In gay marriages, even when an egg is donated, sometimes we don't even know who the donor is, as there are laws to protect the identity of donors, and donors don't like to engage in the upbringing of that child, so the child lives on not even knowing who the real parent is. Also, that egg can only be inseminated by one gay parent and not both gay parents. This means, although the child may have two fathers presented to him, the reality is he's only biologically related to a single parent and not both parents. This can be kind of traumatic, knowing that in a human nature, parents tend to be much more affectionate or caring or understanding or much more committed when they are biologically related to a child. We know this is true on a general basis. For example, how foster carers can give up on children they cared for even after so many years because they're not biologically related. Also, one of the parents may feel more connected to the child since he is related while the other father is not. This can also cause friction between the parent and the child. Once we can understand these traumatic social factors, we can reason to see why being gay can affect individuals and the broader fabric of society. There is no way any gay advocate could argue against the made points. There was a counter criticism of my point, which says, the law of nature is ever evolving. By now, any human may clone himself and need no other. Some species reproduce asexually. Aside from numerous variants, and homosexuality seems to be heritable conduct, a consequence of creation. My response to that is cloning hasn't proved that same sexes can have a genetic biological connection to one child. Until you can prove that, my argument still stands. Also, cloning hasn't solved the issue of child having the rights to two parents of the opposite gender. It's not just about procreation, but being raised and nurtured and cared for by two different genders that have two different unique characters and biological advantages, like having access to fresh breast milk, which is vital for the child's health. Can I also say, just because you may claim LGBTI has benefits, well, I can say you can go practice that in another country. I can argue banning alcohol is beneficial to society because millions of people die from alcohol-related incidents. But just because it's beneficial to remove alcohol doesn't give us a scientific right to ban it, even if there is scientific backing. So appealing to science isn't always a way to determine how we govern laws. If we did, then we ought to make alcohol or tobacco illegal. Raynan replies and says, again, under benevolent neutrality principle, the state never questions on moral standards or doctrinates the accommodate all citizens, but scrutinise those standards or doctrines that may endanger other communities like LGBT and Indigenous tribal. This is not a form of hypocrisy, but a mandate of the state itself and to international law for all respect of all citizens, regardless of religion, sexual orientation, gender, identity, sex, belief, race, color, ethnicity. He says, if you want to treat someone differently or criminalize their deeds, the state requires those who petition for such must articulate it through secular purposes consistent with compelling state interests. That's why imprisoned murderers, rapers, drug users, pushers, fraudsters, and arsonists, not because the Bible, Quran, or Torah said, but because it was explained in secular ways. For now, there is no secular explanation why should we forbid all citizens to wear mixed fabrics, seafoods, and pigs stoning to death. He says LGBT people have been subjected in second paragraph where conservatives lobbied on Congress to criminalize same-sex conduct like sodomy, repelled divorce, abortion, and same-time control the woman's body. He says those things are based on Bible, but the Congress asked first in articulate secular manner, why is that, but failed to substantiate their position. At the same time, liberals presented facts on repealing sodomy law, prohibition on marriage. For the reason conservatives are compelled to rely on making pseudoscientific findings to support their stands. For example, when Renegas did some psychological studies comparing the marital status of married gay couples to married straight couples, his study shows that gay relations won't last long and messy compared to straight relations. But critics invalidated his study on the ground that only 2 respondents are real gay couple in gay couple group, while the rest are straight couples with the history of drug addiction and homosexual sex. He continues by saying, gay parents can't adopt and access IVF or surgeries, yet they are straight parents can. How about the capability of infertile straight couples, single parent and widowed, who can freely avail, yet gay people can't? That thing is nothing but selective inclusive people. Of course, LGBT people counteracted such absurd arguments from conservatives. A study was conducted in Australia, and it shows that it is the quality of parent, not the gender of parents, that affects the growth and state of the children. And he puts an article there. He then says, there are ancient cultures, especially on Eastern, where homosexual union, cross-dressing and joining parents of same sex have been documented in our history. For example, Babylonian, Catalonian, Balian of Philippines, side of Indonesia, Samoa, Maha, Hawaii, 2 spirits of Native America. So yeah, he says at least 1,500 species of animals like penguins, primates, chimpanzees, human apes, tigers, lions, giraffes, dolphins and sheep. With scientific facts, you can easily rule out any non-binary gender are more abnormally inhuman species. Okay, so anyway, he's posted a lot. So we will break it down. So yeah, starting with his point about international law. Who cares about international law? Who are they, God? Every nation has its own set of laws. Science does not define all moral truths. Look, for example, at the age of consent, which varies from country to country, even between secular countries. So who do you think international law is that everyone must abide by? I've also addressed the argument from IVF. Straight couples, when they get married, they have no idea they are infertile. So it's not their fault and thus out of their control. But gay couples do understand if they were to get married to same sex, they will deny a child to have 2 biological parents under one roof, which is predetermined. So they are forcing a child to come to the world just because they want a child when they could be straight instead and still have children. So it's pretty selfish, serve oneself instead of serving the interest of the child. You then posted a link saying, do children need both a mother and a father? You spoke about quality, that it's about quality, not about different sexes. Because he says decisions have been swayed by misconceptions. Okay, so he posted articles that says that claims there is no scientific backing that, 2 parents of different genders are more beneficial scientifically. Apparently there's no research. That's a rubbish. The research is probably put forward by gay activists. I mean, I could just refute that so easily. I mean, let's use just human examples, day-to-day examples. Let's ask the child, actually, that he can no longer celebrate and buy gifts on Father's Day like all other kids in his class because his 2 gay mums determined he could not have a father in his life. Let's ask the child how he feels about that. We can use another example. What about if there is a house burglary and an invasion of property that requires the presence of a male figure who biologically is more powerful than a woman, and all the child had was a woman to protect him? Is this not denying the child to have a dominant father male figure to protect him more? If such a circumstance arrived, one male and one female is much more dominant than two females, are they not? Please stop posting nonsensical articles. You then posted an ancient example of homosexuals. I presume you're trying to make an argument from nature. Well, a widow spider eats her own male companion according to science and how nature works. Perhaps someday we will implement those natural phenomena, all because it's part of nature and the cycle of life. Also, you guys drag this whole debate into LGBTI scientifically or morally acceptable. Let me say this again. Regardless of how scientific verifiable you may believe it to be, or how you may believe it does not harm society and it is perfectly in harmony, that is still not valid. I mean, I could, for example, dispute it and say, homosexuality is one of the biggest main causes of HIV. But anyway, let's put that aside. Let's say they have scientific backing and it's all harmony. That is still not valid. Reasons to force it upon another society that does not wish to agree with your moral standard. Even if you assert you have scientific validation. How do I know this? Well, I have shown earlier there is scientific backing that alcohol causes harm. Despite this, and despite the scientific data to prove this is the case, we still go against the science because we like to live with different values. We all believe in different cultures, even if science is not on our side. So science cannot lead to the truth on how we wish to live and what subjective moral values we like to live as a community. I said, have a nice day, and it was great to have this respectable dialogue, even though things got heated. And I basically said, so I'm now leaving the debate, and it's been a long and back and forth good exchange. Have a great night. I said, let's learn to respect people and their laws, even if it's different from our own, and even if we disagree with them. If that's what the people voted for, then so be it. And guys, the only reason why I'm saying is because I'm using their own weapon against them. This is what they say to Muslims. They say, if you don't respect the law, get out. Go find somewhere else. Go find another country. And I'm beating them with their own stick. Of course, I believe Islam is superior over all belief systems. Of course I do. But does Islam give Christian minorities to live peace and harmony under a Sharia system? Yes. Can they have their churches under a Sharia system? Yes, they can. Can Jews have it? Yes, they can. But there are certain things that we don't accept. And secularism has the same. They can't, they do. They have so many laws against different moral values. So why the double standards? I thank you for listening to this debate. Sorry if it took a bit too long, but yeah. So I hope you enjoyed it. Have a good day.